package is just a container that has other files inside of it. The fundamental thing that a package needs is it needs to contain everything that is required for the package. So if that's an executable, if that's a series of libraries or DLLs, they all need to be inside the package. Some packages might need a script to help configure them or configure the system to use them. I've installed packages that run PowerShell scripts, or might have to run a batch script of some sort. And that's just to maybe set a couple environment variables. It doesn't have to be complicated, but if that stuff is in the package can run it automatically and do the work that's necessary to use it. You might have supporting content. Sometimes, images and style sheets, if you're a developer, a lot of times it's just configuration files or sample configuration files. But all this isn't useful unless there's a manifest that tells the package installer what's in the package and what to do with it. And this will really depend on what packaging system you're using. NuGet does it differently than NPM. NPM does it different than, say, pip. We could spend a lot of time going down all the different rabbit holes. And if actually you have a need to know more about a specific packaging system, you should really let us know, because we have training set up for all these different packaging types. So the manifest is important. It's the thing that tells the installer, all right, here's what we got, here's what we need to do, please go do it. All right, I'm going to show you two examples of manifests. One is with NuGet using what's called the new spec. That's just a fancy word for manifest. And then NPM uses what's called the package.json file to define all of its metadata. So here's a simple example with NuGet or new spec. The manifest just needs to tell the packaging system, the feed, what it needs to know about your package. And it doesn't have to be complicated. But here, we're just telling it what's our unique identifier. So newtonsoft.json. That's what a person would type into the feed search if they were looking for this particular package specifically. What's the current version of the package? And we're going to talk about versioning a little bit more in depth here in a little bit. But if I put a version in here in sim version, the feeds can read those and it can automatically classify, is this package newer than another package, or is it older than another package? We have titles, authors, who's the owner of a package. This is useful metadata. If you're searching for a feed, you might want to know who built the package or who's responsible for the package development. NuGet has a special condition for accepting license agreements. There's also links for licenses and projects, and there's an icon URL. So if you want to have a special icon in the feed, you can put all that in there. And we can keep going down the list, but there's a series of tags in here that help identify what makes this package newtonsoft.json. And actually the part I'm leaving out is everything below dependencies. This is where things can get really complicated, because newtonsoft.json, depending on where you're deploying it, might require one package or might require up to 5 or 6 different packages. Oh, I do have that slide in there. Ha, should have known better. So here's an example. Depending on where I'm installing a NuGet package, it might need a couple different dependencies. And what's smart about how NuGet does this installation is that it knows where it's installing the package, so it can look for the proper set of dependencies. Now, NPM is famous for just having complicated manifests. And it's not so much that they're complicated, it's that they're wordy, and you think you need one thing, but you really need 3 dozen things. I've had to break up the dependency list for a simple application that we run in production that doesn't really do too much. It's a basic UI, but we have a plethora of dependencies that come along with this project. And NPM breaks it up into 2 different types. There's dependencies and there's development dependencies. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but NPM says, here's everything that you need to know about this project. It also has information in there, again, for name and for version. We can also designate scripts to say, okay, when we're running a production build, we need to run this script. If we're running a development build, run that script. We just need to clean everything up. Here's a 3rd script to run. So the big difference between NuGet and NPM is just how they're structured, but fundamentally they're doing the exact same thing. Now, a whole different discussion that we can get into is package verification. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, because if you're installing packages and you're installing them from what you should consider untrusted sources, even if they're the official public repositories that are available out there on the internet, you should have a grain of salt when you're installing those packages, because you don't necessarily know if the package you're downloading is what you think it is. There have been several cases over the past couple of years where people have been able to push up packages that contain a malformed code, or they're trying to do something malicious. The feed developers have worked continuously to try to prevent this. Verification is one of those steps. The real solution, if you're worried about this problem, is that you need to run your own internal feed management system. So you need a tool like ProGet that just eliminates that guesswork, because you're in full control of what packages are available to everyone out there. But going back to package verification, most package managers will use hashes of the file contents to determine this version versus that version. And here's an example using NPM, where there's a SHA-1 hash of the file contents. And when you install that package, you basically get a thumbprint at installation time. So if you need to check your current installed version of the package against what the version up in the feed is versus what your manifest says you should have, you know, or you can trust that if something were to change in any of those locations, you're running the known good version of the package. Again, this isn't a complete fail-safe, but it's a next step towards making sure that you're installing the packages that you think that you're installing. So next, let's talk about how applications are designed with packages in mind.